Hi everyone, welcome to Aussie Conclave 4.0. We hope that you are excited to know all about employer sponsor visa after this session. Now introduce the expert who's going to be at your service today, Prince Bahel. So in today's session, he will be discussing about owned employer sponsor visas and help you to understand the process for your applications with confidence.
Thank you so much, Lee, for the quick introduction. Hello, everyone. For those of you who have joined the session today, my name is Prince. As Lee mentioned before, I'm a registered migration agent, and today we're going to talk about the employer-sponsored visas. So just a moment, I'll pull up the slides, and I hope everybody can see the slides up here.
Yes.
All right, great. So before we start, I just want to make sure that everybody understand what we're going to talk about today. It'll be all about employer-sponsored visas. For those of you who doesn't know about the visa categories, we have different subclasses in this section. 482, as you can see on your screen, it's called temporary skill shortage visa, and 186, which is employer nomination scheme, and 494, which is SESR. It's for the regional areas businesses only. There's another category that comes under 482, 186, and 494, which is DAMA, which is specific to certain regions in Australia. Usually, DAMA is used for occupations that are not in the long-term or short-term list, or even ROL list, which is regional occupation list. There are certain occupations which can be considered under DAMA. So I'll be explaining in detail down the track. But let's get started. And if you have any questions, while I'm going through the slides or the informative session, you can ask your question, leave that in the comment section. I'll take all those questions and, I'll try my best to answer as quick as possible. There's a lot to cover. So if you have any doubt or you got any questions in particular regarding any particular occupation or about the business or the company you're working for, feel free to ask. And, I'll keep an eye on and leave. Would appreciate if you can just keep an eye on the questionnaires as well. If there's something related to what I'm talking about, you can always, you can interrupt and ask me those questions anytime. So, I haven't even started and I can see some questions popping up. So, Aslan, Kavi, I appreciate you asking questions, but let me get started first. And while we go through the session, I'll be answering your questions as well. So, employer-sponsored visas, as I mentioned, there are three different categories, 482, 186, and 494. What are the common criteria? All these three categories are employer-sponsored visa category where you need a sponsor to sponsor you. A sponsor can be a business, a company, or any employer in Australia. A sole trader can sponsor you as well. So a lot of people have got this misconception that, to get a sponsorship, they need a business or a company. Like they must have a company. So it's not necessary that you can get a sponsorship from a company only. A sole trader trading under for example, just to give you an example, if I'm a painter running my painting business, if I'm working as a sole trader and if I've got 3 or 4 guys working for me under my sole trader business on ABN, they can get a sponsorship as well. So it's not only companies or businesses to have ACN or ABN. ACN is Australian company number where you need those sort of information regarding the company. But if you don't have a company set up, you can still sponsor people. While you're holding a 482 visa, you can only work with the same employer. So I'm just covering up the main points. I'll explain you in detail what is the process involved. But if you are in any of these three visa categories, you can only work with the employer that have sponsored you. And there's a minimum set benchmark from the department. All of you may or may not know that from 1st of July, it's going to be increased to $73,150 plus superannuation from 1st of July. As of now, it's about 70,000 plus super, but from 30th of June is any new nomination lodged between before 30th of June. You can nominate yourself with 70,000 salary, but from 1st of July onwards, it'll be 73,150 minimum salary that you must get paid from your employer if you were to get a sponsorship from a company or a business in Australia. A couple of other things that have changed. If you are currently holding 482 visa or if you are going to apply for 482 visa back in the current time, if you leave your employer, like say, to give you an example, if I'm working on a 482 visa for a company, for some XYZ reason, I was made redundant or I got terminated from the company, Obviously, I'm still holding a 482 visa, but for me to find a different employer, I had only 60 days. I mean, still it's currently 60 days, but as per the announcement from the government last year in November, that time duration from 60 days has been increased to 6 months, which is one of the good thing I would say, because sometimes it's not possible for an applicant to find a new employer or a company or a business within 60 days once their existing employer, ceases the employment. So from 1st of July onwards, you will have 6 months to find another employer, which is definitely a good thing. And let's go in detail. What are the steps involved in the process? And as I mentioned, obviously, this section for employer-sponsored visa, it's could be different for any individual. I have to look at a lot of different factors when I have to answer any particular question, because I'm not just talking about the visa applicant here. I need to look at the company profile as well, that what sort of company it is, whether the company has got the financial capacity to sponsor the person. There are a lot of different factors involved in the process, which I'll be explaining in detail in the next slide. So 3 applications, as I mentioned before, 482, 186, 494, all 3 applications, you must have a sponsorship from the company, nomination from the company, and a visa application for yourself. So these 3 applications, sponsorship and nomination, belongs to the company or the business who's going to sponsor you. So with sponsorship application, your business must be lawfully operating in Australia. So when I say lawfully, obviously business must be trading, and if it's a new business, like there is again a myth out there in the industry that if it's a new business, you cannot get a sponsorship from the business. It's not like that. If it's a new business under 12 months, so when I say new business, if the business doesn't have any history of trading, we can still submit the application along with the business plan, how the business will grow in the upcoming years. That's what a part of the sponsorship application is. Department wants to see, is the business financially capable or has got the financial capacity to sponsor you and pay you as per what is required, what is required as per the visa application, which is going to be 73,150 from 1st of July onwards. So business financial capacity gets checked during this first application, sponsorship application. Now, the second application, which is one of the most important application out of all these 3 processes, all 3 applications, nomination application. I would say this is a heart of your application, because nomination is something that, a business needs to justify to the department, or they need to prove or provide evidence to the department that this position is required for the business and how this position will help to grow the business in the near future, and what would be the benefit to the business if they sponsor this person. There are a few steps involved in this nomination application. So first is labor market testing. Depending on the country of passport you hold, there are certain countries exempted from labor market testing as well. Like if you're holding a passport from USA, UK, New Zealand, and a few other countries, if you're holding the passport from these specific countries, there's no labor market testing required. For those who doesn't know about what labor market testing is, it is kind of a process that we need to provide and prove it to the Department of Home Affairs that a company or a business, before deciding to sponsor somebody, they have made enough efforts to find a local person. When I say local person, I'm talking about Australian permanent resident or Australian citizens. We have to prove that none of those applicants who applied, the advertisement needs to be required from the company. Once the advertisement is there, people who apply for the position, if the company couldn't find any particular person who have applied for the position who's an Australian resident or citizen, they go to the department and say, we couldn't find anybody who were exactly meeting the requirement of our job position. That is the reason why we wanted to extend our sponsorship to someone who doesn't hold a PR or a Australian citizenship, and that's what it is required under labor market testing. So it's not like if anybody wants to sponsor you, you can go out straight away and sponsor somebody. There is a process or a compliance or a regulation requirement from federal government in Australia that before you get a sponsorship, they need to justify that they have tested the local labor market. Where the reason why it is required, because Australian government definitely wants Australian people who belong here, like in terms of permanent resident and citizen, they get the preference first to secure those jobs rather than company going out to sponsor somebody and deciding to sponsor somebody. So labor market testing is something related to job advertisement, and that job advertisement itself must be advertised for minimum 28 days. So it's not like a company advertises a position for a week or two just for the sake that department wants the job advertisement. The minimum time period has been specified in legislation, which is 28 days. So you cannot, I would highly recommend, if you're one of the employer watching this live session, if the advertisement must be for minimum 28 days, and after that you can proceed with the nomination application. Now next to it, if you see genuineness of position, this is a key factor. Is it that the position you are sponsoring the person in, is it a genuine position in the business or not? For example, few of the things that needs to be required and explained to the department in the submission that we do as a migration agents on behalf of sponsor, or obviously, as a migration agent, we consult the company owner or the employer, and they justify that, okay, well, why do they need this person? Obviously, there is a proper format that is required. We discuss with the employer, we provide them information how it is to be presented to the department, and obviously with their requirements, they put that in the submission. We review it and we submit that to the department. With genuineness of position, the first thing that needs to be looked into is the position the company is going to sponsor someone. Is it an existing position, or it's a new position that has been created in the business for the growth of the business? For example, let's say, let's talk about a hospitality industry like a restaurant, right? So if I have a restaurant of 30 seating, 30 or 40 seating restaurant, and I've already got a full-time chef and a full-time cook working in the kitchen, and my restaurant is open only for, like, say, dinner services from 5 to 9, 7 days a week. I already got 2 full-time employees working in the kitchen, making dishes, obviously preparing dishes and all. And my turnover is not that high either for my restaurant, and the profitability of the business is not that high either. Now, in a scenario like this, if I go to the department and take this application, and if I were to say that I want to sponsor a chef or a cook, department is going to look at the financial capacity of the business, whether the business is making profit or not. If it's a 40 or 50 seating restaurant only operating for dinner services, having 2 full-time employees, it's hard to justify that I need a third full-time cook or a chef in the business. Whereas if I just change the scenario a little bit, instead of 40 or 50 seating restaurant, if I say I've got 100 seating restaurant capacity, and my restaurant operates breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I need to sponsor a third full-time cook or a chef, it makes more sense because of the scale of the business, the revenue the business is generating, and the profit they're making. It looks like, definitely there is a genuine need of a person in the kitchen, like a third chef or a cook, full-time, which obviously, because of the number of hours business is operating, it is easy to justify to the department, rather than as compared to the previous scenario where it was only operating for dinner services. I've just taken the hospitality industry example because there are a lot of people out there who are looking for sponsorship in this industry. So I thought of sharing this information. But genuineness of position, whether this position is required for the business, is it a genuine position in the business? It's not something that has been created to solve the visa purpose. It is definitely required for the business operation as well as for the growth of business. So genuineness of position is one of the key factor, I would say, which is very important in terms of any of the application, whether it'll be 482, 186, or 494. Genuineness of position is the most important factor, where I've seen a lot of applications in the past from different migration agencies, different employers, where they got a refusal for such a minor thing that they could have explained well to the department. It got refused. So it's a very important factor that needs to be addressed before the application is lodged to the department. Now, the third section is the market salary rate. So TISMIT, obviously, it is basically we have to prove it to the department that, for example, if it's an IT company, you want to sponsor a software engineer, obviously from 1st of July onwards, the minimum salary is 73,150 plus super. But if you go to the department and say, hey, as an employer, if you go to the department and say, hey, I'm happy to pay 73,150, I want to sponsor a person, it doesn't work that way. That's where market salary rate comes into the picture. What it means that as an employer, you are required to, as a company or an employer, they are required to survey the market. Like, for example, on an average, if a software engineer gets paid around, say, 90,000 on an average, so you need to justify that why you're paying less as per the market salary, because market salary for a software engineer is about $80,000 or $90,000. You're paying less than that. How do you justify that? Obviously, there are certain factors you can say that $80,000 to $90,000 for a software engineer is for somebody who has got about 3 to 5 years of experience. But for someone who's got less experience, or just 1 or 2 years of experience, justifying 73,150 would be easier. So that is again a part of market salary that you can justify that. Why do you think this amount you're paying to the applicant, this estimate or the minimum salary you're paying to the applicant, is equivalent to the market salary? Because with market salary, we have to do the market survey as well. Like we have to go to a different job platforms where we seek for the similar position, nominated position. We were talking about software engineer, so let's continue with software engineer. That we have looked into Brisbane market, Melbourne market, or or surroundings of Brisbane. Depending on the location of the company, we pretty much prefer to look around the jobs in that similar profession around the geographical area of that company. So to give you an example, me being in Brisbane, if a company in Brisbane, IT company in Brisbane, were to sponsor a IT person or a software engineer, we have to look around the other job-seeking websites who are looking for software engineer with an experience of, say, 2 to 5 years, and we will see on an average how much they get paid. So our salary would be according to that particular rate. So 73,150 is minimum. However, it turns out to be, say, 80 or 85 on an average. We recommend the employers, or, obviously we advise them to meet the market salary rate rather than just keeping it minimum as per the legislation that is required for nomination application. So it's not like anybody who's willing to pay you 73,150, you can get a sponsorship. There is a salary remuneration that we have to do a survey and justify to the department that the salary proposed to the nominee is as per the market standards. I hope that helps. But as I said, there are several different factors in this particular category. If anybody has any question, I would be happy to take that on later. And a couple of extra requirements: position description, what would be your duties and responsibilities, what sort of job you will be involved in, and what are the duties or the daily schedule of work will be performed by you if you will get the sponsorship. Lastly, you need an employment contract. For example, if it's a 482 short-term occupation, as we all know that 482 short-term occupation, we get the visa granted only for 2 years. So in that case, let's talk about cook and chef. It's easier for me to explain because chef falls under long-term list, cook falls under short-term list. So if any employer or any restaurant wants to sponsor you, if you apply as a cook, that falls under short-term list, you get the visa granted only for 2 years. However, if you apply for a chef, which falls under long-term list, the visa granted will be for 4 years. And regardless whether you are under long-term or short-term or cook or chef, as per the new changes, you will be eligible to apply for a 186 direct entry permanent residency after 2 years, once you continue working with the employer for 2 years. So back in the days, I would say like till last year, we had this information that any occupation that falls on the short-term list, they were not eligible to apply for permanent residency pathway through the same employer. But it has been changed, which is again a positive thing. Regardless your occupation falls under any of the list, short-term or long-term, you are eligible to apply for permanent residency, which is another category called 186 transition stream, which we discuss on another slide. 186 transition stream, that is the pathway for permanent residency for someone holding 482 for minimum 2 years and applying for 186 transition stream after 2 years with the same employer. So going on further, visa application, obviously that's the last application and that belongs to you as a visa applicant. So I discussed about the first two applications. Sponsorship nomination belongs to the employer or the company or the business. Last application comes to you. Obviously, you have to meet the qualification requirement, work experience requirements, English requirements if it's required for the particular occupation you're applying for. And obviously, you have to meet the health and character requirements as well. You can include your family members and kids as well in the application, so which is a good part. It's not just for yourself. You can bring your family over as well. If any of you is watching this live session from overseas, you can bring your family over along in this visa application. For 482 long-term occupations like chef, going back to the same things, like chef, you need minimum 5 bands in English in all modules, listening, speaking, reading, writing. And if you talk about short-term occupation, which is STSOL occupations, as a cook, let's say as a cook, you need minimum 4.5 bands in each module. So I hope I'm pretty much clear with the basic criteria, what is required for either 482 or 494. But when we talk about 482, three applications: sponsorship, nomination, and visa application. That's on your screen. First two application belongs to the employer, last one belongs to you. And if we go further, when we talk about 186, you can see on the slide at the last section at the bottom, it says 186 DE, which is direct entry, and TRT, which is transition stream. Another category, 494 visa, which I would say that is only applicable to the businesses or the companies based in regional Australia. So anything outside of Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney is regional. So if me being in Brisbane again, if you're based in Gold Coast or Sunshine Coast, both comes under regional area. And if you want to find out what are the regional areas, if you want to find out, you can jump onto the website or you can Google it, regional areas of Australia. You can see the postcode, and if one of your employer business is in the regional area, you can also go for 494. So the requirements, the visa application requirements, when I say for 482, 186, and 494 are different. The work experience requirements are different. The English language requirements are different. So if any of you wants to apply for 186 direct entry, which is a direct PR application, you need minimum 6 bands in each module of IELTS. And it same goes for 494 visa. You need minimum 6 bands in each module. 494, keep in mind, 494, it's not a direct permanent residency application. It's a pathway to permanent residency. 494 visa is granted for 5 years. And after 3 years, when you work with the employer, you get eligible to apply for permanent residency, which is 191 visa. That's something we're going to cover up in the next slides. All right, so I've already discussed about 482, 482, 186, and 494. Let's go in detail a bit. 494 visa, that's a category that only belongs to the regional businesses. So you can see on the screen, sponsor or the company must be in regional area only. You definitely need a skills assessment. It's a meant, like you say, if you were to apply, for example, as a marketing specialist, you definitely need a skills assessment through Verisys to apply for a marketing specialist, or regardless any occupation, you need a skills assessment for this. Now, the work experience requirement is different in this category. As you can see, must have minimum 3 years of full-time work experience within the last 5 years. So the approach from the department within the last 5 years is pretty flexible, but you cannot get away with minimum 3 years of full-time work experience requirements, which is a must. And after 3 years working with the employer, you apply for 191 visa, which is a permanent residency visa. So as I said to you previously, that you get a visa grant for 5 years, and after 3 years working with the employer, you can apply for 191 visa, which is a direct PR application. And the TISMET, which is the same in this, from 1st of July, 73,150. So this is what about 4. So the only difference for 494 I see is additional work experience requirements. So it requires 3 years, and you need a skills assessment. English requirement is 6 each. And there's additional application. So with normal 482 visa, we had sponsorship, nomination, and visa. Whereas when we talk about this, we have got an additional application for RCB, which is regional certifying body. It goes to the local council where the business is based. So you have to get an approval from the local council. This is an additional application, which we call RCB application. Once that is approved, then you follow the standard 482 process of sponsorship, nomination, and visa. So in short, there are not just 4, I would say you have to have an RCB, sponsorship, nomination, visa, and a skills assessment. So there are typically 5 applications that are involved in the entire process of 494 visa. But your employer must be in regional area only. So if your occupation falls under, to give you an example, if your occupation falls under ROL list, which is regional occupation list, and if the business is based in metropolitan city, like say in Melbourne, you cannot go for 494 visa because the business location must be in regional area only. So like I said, I cannot cover up everything. I'm just providing you basic information. If anybody has any particular question about a business or the occupation, leave that in the comment section, please. So let's compare about all these 3 visa categories, mainly what we have discussed so far. So for 482, minimum 2 years of work experience is required currently, but it's changing from from November, which will be reduced to 1 year. Now, skill assessment is not required for 482 visa. That's one of the questions asked by one of the viewers. So skill assessment is not mandatory, and you have to work with the employer for minimum 2 years to apply for permanent residency, which is 186 transition stream. That's the visa you apply after 2 years. Now, I also wanted to share this information that currently or previously, it's going to change by the end of this year. The requirement is you must complete minimum 2 years with the same employer on 482 visa to apply for 186 transition stream. Now, with the new changes, upcoming changes, what has been announced by the government that the work experience that you have gained on 482 visa doesn't have to be with just one employer. So let's give you an example. If you got a sponsorship from back in currently what the scenario is, if you've been sponsored by company A, you got to be working for minimum 2 years with company A before you apply for 186 transition stream PR. So you must be working with the same company for minimum 2 years. Now this requirement is changing, which is again a positive thing. So if you were sponsored by company A, you worked there for 1 year, then you change your employer and you work with company B for 1 year, you can accumulate those 1 plus 1 year of experience equals to 2 years of experience, and you can use those 482 experience from two different employers with the company B and apply for 186 transition stream. A lot of applicants may not know about this. This is a major change that they have introduced. I mean, not introduced yet, but it's been announced that they're going to introduce very soon, that you can combine your 482 experience from two different employers to apply for 186 transition entry after 2 years, which is not the case currently, or it wasn't the case before, but it's going to change in the future, which is again a good thing. Now, let's talk about 186 visa. There are two categories in 186 transition stream. That is something you apply after 482 visa, being on 482 visa for 2 years. 186 visa, there is another stream called direct entry. It's a direct PR application, permanent residency application. The requirement for that is you must have minimum 3 years of full-time experience after the qualification. The reason why I'm saying after the qualification, a lot of applicants out there has got this misconception or myth out there that you can use your experience during the study and apply for 186 direct entry. Keep in mind that any relevant experience when we talk about 186 direct entry has to be after your qualification, because that's when you are considered to be working at a skill level because you've completed the relevant qualification. For example, if I've done my bachelor's of computer engineering, and I've got 2 years of experience during study and 1 year of experience afterwards, I do not meet the requirement for 186 direct entry because I've got only 1 year of experience after my study. I can apply for a 482 visa, that's all good, but when we talk about direct entry, all my 3 years of experience has to be after my bachelor's of computer engineering. Hope that helps. Skill assessment is mandatory. You cannot skip that part. You definitely need a skill assessment to apply for 186 direct entry. And it's a direct PR application, and minimum requirement for IELTS is 6 bands in each module, listening, reading, speaking, writing. So that's 186 direct entry, and transition is something you apply after 482, after holding 482 for 2 years. Now, the third category, 494, it's similar to 186. You need minimum 3 years of full-time work experience. You do need a skills assessment. But the only difference is for 186 direct entry, your employer can be anywhere in Australia, but for 494, your employer must be based in regional Australia outside Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney. With 494, a lot of people ask this question as well. Can I change my employer if I'm holding a 494 visa for 5 years? Can I change my employer once the visa is granted? Can I change my employer after 2 years? Yes, the positive thing about 494 visa is that if you have worked with the company who have sponsored you for 1 year or 2 years, you can change the employer and work with that employer for third year, and you are still eligible to apply for 191 visa, which is a permanent residency application. So it doesn't, differentiate between the employers. As long as you've worked on a 494 visa with 2 or 3 different employers for minimum 3 years, you are still eligible to apply for 191 visa. So I think I've already covered what's written underneath regarding the, I just mentioned, as you can see from the note at the bottom, with the current requirement, the requirement was 2 years on 482 with the same employer to apply for 186. That's going to change in November. two different employer, 2 years of experience combined can be used for 186 transition stream. Last thing I just want to share about the DAMA, which I mentioned before, it's a little bit different than 482, 494, and 186. DAMA, there are 4 applications in the process. Like 494, we have got RCB, which is Regional Certifying Body. And DAMA, we have got DAR, which is DAR endorsement. That again, we have to go to the local council in that region. We have to get the approval from local council for DAR, which is Designated Area Representative. From the local council, they approve the business that they are okay to go for DAMA. And DAMA is pretty much like a sponsorship application and then nomination and visa. So again, there are 4 applications in the process, but the benefit of DAMA is there are a lot of occupations that doesn't fall into any of the lists, which is whether it'll be short-term, long-term, or regional occupation list. Those occupations you can find under DAMA. Truck drivers are under DAMA. Waiters are in DAMA. Retail supervisor are in DAMA. Flight attendant is in DAMA. There are a lot of different occupations. Different DAMA region have got different occupation lists. So if you want to particularly find out which occupation, if you have an employer in regional area, there are 12 regions in Australia where DAMA can be processed. Adelaide, majority of the Adelaide comes under DAMA, as well as when we talk about Perth, Pilbara, Southwest Australia, Goldfield, WA, which is Kalgoorlie, quite popular for DAMA sponsorships. And we talk about Queensland, it's available in Far North Queensland and Townsville. So Cairns and Townsville is a part of the DAMA. And Victoria, it's Goulburn Valley and Great South Coast, which is, I believe, Warrnambool, which is about 300 kilometers from Melbourne. It's available there as well. Northern Territory, entire Northern Territory is a part of DAMA. And Orana, New South Wales, which I guess Dubbo is the region where you can go under DAMA sponsorship as well. So if you have an employer in any of these specific regions, you can go to their website, have a look at their list, and see if your occupations falls into that list or not. If your occupations fall under that list, you can apply for DAMA 482 visa or 186 or 494, and you can find your PR pathway easily. So this is one of the other benefit of DAMA. I would like to address it to all of you. Some of you may be over 45 years of age. So there is an age exemption as well as salary exemption under DAMA. So that's something beneficial for someone who's already over 45, because to apply for 186 direct entry or transition stream, the cutoff age is 45. For anybody who's over 45, DAMA is the way to go. And as I said, there are a lot of occupations in the DAMA list. So if you have any particular occupation like aged care worker, child care worker, disability support worker, all of them fall under DAMA list. But just check the list from that particular region, because every region has got a different occupation list. You got to find out if your occupations fall in that particular region or not. So guys, thank you so much once again for joining this conclave session. I hope it was beneficial and informative to all of you.